بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum all. Today we're joined by Hudhayfa Nazoordeen, a young student at Waterloo who just got, in the news for building a nuclear fusion. Hudhayfa, it's a pleasure to bring you on.
Yeah, likewise, Wassim. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I was gonna start. I remember I saw you on the previous podcast with a Portugal jersey, and I was like, is this guy into sports? Is this guy into a nerd? So tell us about your upbringings. How you went from
Yeah,
Sri Lanka to Waterloo, and basically your interests that brought you there.
yeah. So this is a funny story. I'm gonna bring it up now, but I grew up most of my life in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh. So I lived there for 10 years actually. My first language was basically Arabic, and when I was in Saudi Arabia, like my favorite player was always Ronaldo,
Right.
and my dad never let me buy a non-Muslim player jersey, like T-shirt. And so my first ever jersey I owned was from Al Nassr. And then it's like crazy because like Ronaldo ended up going there and it was like full circle for me. So it's funny to bring that up because, yeah. So I remember my classmates would all have like Messi or Ronaldo and I would have like Al Nassr or like Al Hilal or some shit like that. But, it was really funny. So yeah. I used to love watching like sports.
I think every young guy, Barca Riyadh, their prime back then, not so much now. But when you're
Yeah.
going through high school, and I think that's when a boy starts to like think about life a little more seriously. What were kind of the interests that you pursued in high school before going to Waterloo?
Um, it's hard to say because I was just always like just on my
Hmm.
computer. I spent most of my time like I tried to spend as much time as possible on my computer, just like learning, watching like videos and like things, um, and also just spending time like downloading apps and like trying them, like trying Photoshop, trying like Cinema 4D, trying Blender, and so it was always like around technology. It was around like the intersection of like technology and some sort of creative output, and also a lot of video games. I think that was another way I expressed, I guess, my output and like almost obsession with something was like through video games. And so those were like my main things. But again, all around technology.
Okay, okay. And then you were you considering other colleges, or I know Waterloo's pretty known for being a really good technical school. How
Yeah.
was that?
So I applied to a few universities, a couple in America, like MIT, and then Waterloo, McGill, Toronto. I actually got rejected from every single one of them. So yeah,
Sucks for them,
I
right?
remember that was like yeah, I guess so. Actually, not yet, not yet. I still have a lot to do. So yeah, it was, it was interesting. It was definitely like kind of disappointing because I knew I had the grades for it. It was like a weird year, especially during COVID, where things were like strange times and like, nothing was normal. And so everything was just out of the ordinary. And so I think my application got kind of weirded out.
Okay, okay. And then why did you end up majoring in math? Because I see you talked about how you're like really good in software, right? So I would imagine CS,
Yeah.
and then I saw the project of your nuclear fuser, so I'd
Yeah.
say hardware. But you mentioned you're a CS guy. Well,
Yeah.
why math?
So this is funny. That's not planned, but it was the greatest thing that could have happened. Alhamdulillah. And partly because, well, I got deferred from CS, so that was the issue.
Oh,
So I just didn't get into CS. So usually Waterloo is like you don't get into CS, you go into math. If you don't get math, you go into geomatics, which is another program. So I got into math, and I think that was interesting because I actually really enjoyed it, and I was it felt like a very general subject, like a very general technical subject. Like knowing math, I could figure out physics, I could figure out a lot of stuff in engineering, I could figure out computer science, I could figure out economics. And it was like a very good like baseline or base to start from, and a good way to just get or like understand how like logic
mm.
works and like making arguments and like thinking about problems in a methodical way and solving them that way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think once you understand, I think the high level principles, it gives you
Mhm.
a framework to better attempt problems, especially in the technical field.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a very good like place to start, I think, because it also like it's also it definitely challenges you in that sense because it's also like many people in their lives never get to do hard math. It's not very often you get to do that or have the chance to do that. And so I think Waterloo is actually the only North American math faculty in the world, in North America. So it was definitely a privilege, and something I'm very grateful for that I had that experience, because I don't think I could have gotten it anywhere else.
Yeah. And at this point, did you come to, university with a preset notion of I want to build something and then go out, or what was your mindset coming in?
I had no idea. I always made things, like I always worked on a company. I always tried to make money with stuff like that. That's what I'd been doing every single day of my life till that point. So I knew I had to. I think it was just almost instilled in my brain. I never really thought of anything else. But I think for a year I kind of lost that because I was so obsessed with like the job grind. Because that's the Waterloo
Yeah.
culture, which is like you go for co-op, and that really it distracted me, at least. Like it made me feel like I was lying to myself in what I wanted to do. And that clearly wasn't what I wanted to do.
How do you regain it?
There's this thing called Socratica that I joined. It's just like community of like makers and stuff that I joined very early. And I think watching other people work on things really like reignited my passion for that. It was like the thing that lit up the flame inside again. And something I've become very involved with since then. I think it's a place where people just come and work on things and then demo them. It's a very simple community. It's a very simple idea, but also one that's, I think, very important, especially in a world today where I think people isolate themselves so much. The idea of a third space has gone away. We spend our day either at school, work, and then home, and nothing else. And so we've lost that. And I think it's important to have that, because I think maybe like 50 years ago, like when churches were a big thing or different religions, that's where the place people would go to was like place of worship. But that's definitely declined. And so, yeah, there has to be something that serves as a third place.
Yeah, no doubt. That's actually really interesting in terms of like the sociological aspect, where especially I would see among startup founders is they're definitely always in third spaces, other than religion, which I think for religious people they go there. But even to accelerate one's career, there's different like hubs. I know there was one, like, I don't know if you heard of it. It's in Toronto, like Project 513 or 5 something. Yeah, yeah,
535.
yeah. Like things like that. It just accelerates innovation in small hubs, and that's how you accelerate.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something we've kind of like forgotten about. Like I think people have forgotten that like maybe you shouldn't spend all your time on your phone. And maybe you should actually go outside. And so that notion has been like long forgotten, and something that needs to come back. And you slowly see it coming back. Yeah, especially in Toronto, like in Waterloo, like all over the world, with like Socratica nodes all over the world, where the mission is to bring that back, in the form of like something that people can come to and gather and work on things. And yeah, I think it's just very important.
I want to ask you something about your perspective on the balance between working by yourself and community. I think for community,
Yeah.
you get I don't know how you say it, in the himma, the aspiration to you get
Mm.
competitive nature, right? You see everybody else, you're like,
Yeah.
man, if they can do this, why can I, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when you're by yourself, it's more like you're singular focused. How would you describe
Yeah.
that notion played into your journey, especially with the nuclear fusion?
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic question. So I will put it in terms of how I think my life has been. I spent most of my life very isolated in terms of working on things. It was always me alone in my room. And I think the issue with that is that I didn't know what the bar was. I didn't know like how much better I could
Mm.
be. And so there is there is a great purpose of, or a great, like it's very useful to go to places where people are better than you. Either it's a university, or like it was just like a job that has all the best people, or even a place like a Socratica or something, where all those people are and like work on things and are similar to you and have very like-minded, because they push you. Those are the people who will constantly make you want more and like achieve higher and become more ambitious. But at the same time, like if you spend all your time being around people and at events, you actually get nothing done. And so critically, the balance is you have to maintain a very careful balance of like spending a lot of your time working on things like alone, but also like not losing your mind, and not isolating yourself, and also like learning new things and like having some way to discover new things is I think important, because you don't want to be in your own echo chamber, and so that's a part the community plays into. And the other thing is it also helps you in your own pursuit. So even if you're working on something alone, you don't have to. You could find a co-founder, you could find a friend, I could find someone to help you with things. And I think that's so valuable because one, you get to learn things, and two, it's much easier doing something very hard with other people. And you asked me how that played with my fuser, and most of the people I worked with the fuser were all people I met through Socratica or like friends of that. And then they literally stayed in my apartment, or like when they flew down or something, they just stayed with me for a week. And I would just beg them every day or bug them like to help me with it. So it was very much built with a lot of people in mind who helped a lot and taught me so much.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It definitely, increases one's competitiveness. I think from here, I want to, jump the bridge to your project about, nuclear fusion and all. I think it started when one of your friends mentioned something about it, and you're like, if she can do it, why can't I? So take us through it.
Right, yeah. So it was at this event called Esmeralda in California. It was this strange, I thought very strange, like pop-up retreat, like middle of nowhere. I found it quite strange actually, but I went to it and it was a lot of fun.
Where was it? In the Sequoias?
It was very interesting. It was like it's a city called Healdsburg. It's like a hour drive north of San Francisco. Okay. Anyways, she's someone I've known about, crossed paths before, but I actually talked to her about this thing, and it really got me excited. I think the moment I heard the buzzword, I was like, oh, okay, that would make for a great headline. Anyways, and it just got me very like interested in it, and I just kept talking to her for a bit, and then she showed me this website. I was like, oh, okay, let me look into it more. And the website was just so good. There was just so much information. I just kept reading and reading, and I was sitting there next to her, like not too far away from her. I just kept reading, and like 4 hours later, I was like, okay, tell me more. And she was like, wait, you're still reading that? And that's what I kept doing. I just kept reading, and I just kept absorbing knowledge as much as possible, or at least the basic knowledge. And then I just started buying stuff, I think, because I think it doesn't make sense to read that much. And until like, I think it's a stronger incentive to spend money on a thing. And then you have a bunch of random shit in your house. You're like, bro, I can't waste money. I can't like let this go to waste. So now you're encouraged to actually keep going forward. So step one was reading. Step two was just buying stuff and seeing what happens, and just going from there.
Okay. And then, so you already had a pre-planned idea, and you kind of like researched with, a co-pilot, or how did you go about it?
Yeah. So the research was done using a couple of tools. So one was openfuser.com, which Olivia had made. It was that forum scraped, and using RAG, you're able to like query it and retrieve very good like chunks from the website, so you don't have to like go through it. And second was taking all those things and putting into Claude, and taking all my knowledge that I accumulated, or things I found online, or parts I ordered, and putting that into Claude. And it just served as like a useful thing to ask dumb questions to. Humans don't like answering lots of dumb questions. It's just annoying, like especially when you know so much. As much as people say just ask dumb questions, it's annoying. Like people don't like it. And so it's easy to ask dumb, very stupid questions to an assistant that won't judge you. And that's where I think it played the most useful part.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something really, really interesting where, like you said, humans, I think when you're talking to a specialist, they prefer, like you said, specialist questions, right? If you come with a specific example, not just dumbing them down. And you mentioned that if you use, ChatGPT or Claude or all these AI tools as if you're a child, like just discovering something for the first time, you can get the most benefit out of it. Is that how you approached it?
Yeah, 100%. It's like you want to have the childlike curiosity. Children generally ask a lot of questions, and they ask very annoying questions like, why is the sky blue? But it's such a great question. Like it has so much depth to it, but it's still so annoying to explain. And I think that's where the power of like these assistants come in, is not because the human has lesser knowledge or that they can't attain that knowledge. It's just it won't get annoyed. It's a better teacher. It's a teacher that can adapt to any style. It's a teacher that can show images. It's a teacher that can explain it as a 12th grader, as a 5th grader, or whatever you want it to be. And there's a lot of value to that. It's it'll never get tired. It'll always be there for you.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of what AI has provided, because it lets you personally, I use it for, like you said, research, like just finding like dumb facts, or breaking down data into like certain aspects. And I don't know if it has conscience right now and all that hype, but I think that's what it's the biggest use is for.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think this it's a very good data aggregator, and for like it's like a second brain almost. They can just pull from that for like a lot of knowledge that you want to refer back to, or translate it into a different format.
So when you're building this project as a nuclear fusion, did you just kind of use it as the prompter, and you're the arms, you're just doing it, or how was your relationship with Claude?
Yeah, almost that. It was basically imagine a teacher that has no hands. And so I would have to do the actions, but it had to explain to me certain things. And of course, I don't want to like cut out my friends who were there too, who also helped me actually do it, because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, sure, I knew the instructions, but I didn't actually know what to do. And so they taught me a lot of that, especially who were better like engineers than me. Like to be fair though, they weren't there the whole time, so it was still a lot of my work, but they were like extremely vital to it. They're probably some of the reason I'm not like dead today. So yeah, like 100%, like without a doubt. So many of those people, so many.
Did you just like contact them, or how did you reach them?
I lived with
Okay,
them.
okay, okay.
I was very lucky. I lived with a lot of them. Yash, for example, was one of them. My other friends, they were visiting San Francisco anyways, and they needed a place to stay. So I was like, oh, stay at my place in exchange. You will teach me.
Okay.
And so I would just let them stay on my couch or something. And they would just like teach me, or like they would just show me things. One of them is Andy. He's just knows so much. Like he's like a real life Wikipedia. He just knows so much. And so, yeah, just people like them, extremely helpful. And I could just pull on their knowledge and pull on their experience, especially, and get their help.
Did you ever consider like you were in SF at that time, like going to a professor in like one of the SF universities or Stanford and asking for like expert advice, or was it just like engineer help?
Never. I don't like going to professors. I think they're too slow, and I think they are. I think professors teach to a certain demographic, but they can't teach like a kindergartner. And that's what I was at that point. So I definitely couldn't. And also I needed more practical advice. Like I needed someone there because I could get the knowledge. Like the knowledge isn't hard to get. I can like a lot of basic nuclear physics is out there. It's like, it's pretty attainable. Well, like understanding the physics, I know how like some extent of physics or math. The issue is just like practical engineering. And for that, and the best part about, I think, this project was that you need to know the science behind it to actually do the engineering. And that's a fascinating thing about physics or things around that, is like you cannot abstract it away so much that you don't know how like voltage works, or like V equals IR. You need to know those equations. Unlike software where you can just import a class or a library and it doesn't matter how it works. It's just so abstracted. Physics, you cannot do that. There is a fundamental level that you must learn. And so you are forced to learn it to know how to engineer things. And I think that's the key.
I have a question. If you let's say you got into the CS department, so you're not doing math, you think you would have been able to do this, or like it's a kind of a blessing in disguise that you got into the math department and was able to think at that level, which allowed you to explore more fields?
Definitely don't think it would have changed that much. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, I don't think it would have changed that much. Because math and CS have the same courses for first year. So, and I stopped trying school after second year. So I don't think it would have. I would have had the same friends too. Honestly, like being honest, not
Okay.
much. I think just being in math just gave me more flexibility.
Okay.
Um,
So it wasn't like
yeah.
really like the philosophical questions in regard to like whether it would be physics or chemistry. It'd be just you're developing a mindset of being a builder.
Yeah, the mindset of just do it. Like, I don't know what more to say. It's like, I have a goal and I'm going to get there. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get
Yeah.
there. How I get there is not necessary. It's like the path, or like what needs to be done. Or like, yeah, it's not. I don't have to read a full book on nuclear fusion to actually do it. I just need to know like the bits that are relevant, and then I can learn more if I need to. So I just learned whatever was relevant. So if you ask me, I don't actually know that much about nuclear physics or plasma. I don't really know that much. I just know what I needed to know.
Right. The end product you had, the nuclear fuser. Can you just explain it for the general public, like what it was and what kind of energy was it able to deliver, and what was the end product?
Yeah, for sure. I think before that, I want to, I guess, clarify how. Okay, I guess like, is your audience more technical? Like, how much do you want me? To what level do you want me to explain it to?
I think, like you said, some people are kindergartners and some people are more advanced,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
Which one
I
would
would
you like?
say like explain it a bit of both if you don't mind. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So the basic concept is you have. I'm going to assume like people know what like a cathode and anode is. Maybe a cathode is something that attracts like, negatively charged particles, like an electron, and an anode is something that attracts positively charged particles. So in a fuser, you have two parts. One is the anode and the outer. Sorry, the inner is the cathode and the outer is the anode. And so when you supply a voltage to the cathode inside, it creates a voltage difference. So there's a voltage to the cathode in the center, and then the outside is grounded, so it's zero. So if you give 10,000 volts to the inside and the outside zero, you have a potential difference of minus 10,000. The voltage you're supplying is negative. And so what that means is if you have a fuel inside your chamber that is, say, negatively charged, or sorry, positively charged, it gets attracted to the negatively charged cathode. And in this case, for fusion, you need deuterium, which is hydrogen, which is a hydrogen isotope. So it's a hydrogen ion with an extra neutron. So just imagine it's a hydrogen. And when you have these hydrogen ions floating around and you suddenly put this like negatively charged like ball inside, they all start like whizzing around towards it. And because it's like a hollow grid, they start going all through it, and suddenly they could hit each other. And when they hit each other, they fuse. This is the same reaction that happens in the sun. And when two ions of deuterium fuse, they form helium plus a neutron. The neutron and plus energy, and that energy is nuclear fusion energy. And that's kind of the process that's happening inside this chamber. But for this, you also need a vacuum, and you also need high voltage. The vacuum is so that it's not too concentrated, so that the particles have space to move around as fast as possible, because they need a certain amount of energy so that when they collide, that fusion, or I guess they can fuse together. Otherwise, if they don't have enough enough energy, they can't fuse. That's kind of like the basic, like what's going on here and what's happening. In my case, it was just plasma. There was no fuel. So what that means is it was just air inside. And so air, it breaks down into the ions, and you have like random stuff inside. You might have nitrogen, you might have hydrogen. They all just move towards the cathode, and it's just producing plasma. It's just fancy light bulb.
So it's pretty nice physics, but at the end, it was, like you said, like a nice light bulb, right?
Yeah. There really isn't anything that special. The thing I think people miss is that this is like stage one. I'm building the full fuser right now, and that's actually the hard part. It's probably the first place I'm saying it, but yeah, I'm trying to like get the fastest like nuclear fusion 0 to 1 like ever, and seeing how fast I can do that.
What's the previous record for that?
I have no idea, but just based on what I've seen, people have spent from years doing it to like many months. My friend who I know was the one I think who did it the fastest. She did it in like 3-4 months or so. I'm trying to aim for like 1, but I think the biggest blocker is just shipment of parts. Like if I had everything, I would just build it one day and then debug for a few days. Yeah, that's the thing. I think people are just generally slower than they think they can. Like people can be faster than they think.
When building this project, has this given you insight? I think like when anybody hears nuclear, they obviously think of a bomb. But has this given you insight into like how the tiny man and the fat man, or I forgot the names, was built, or like just the beginning stages?
Yeah. So it's actually, I mean, I'd read more about it. I think I read this book called Nuclear War, and it's a very popular book.
Was it by that woman?
Well, I'm reading it right
now. Like Jacobson?
Yes, it is. Yeah, okay. I think so. You seem to know your stuff. Yeah. So I'm reading it right now, and it's terrifying. It's really scary. It's like it's a really like this shit is
Yeah, yeah,
crazy. And it's like especially thermonuclear bombs, so like the hydrogen bomb, which uses a mix of fusion plus fission. And that's like the fusion triggers the fission, and it's this whole like step process. But it doesn't really give me that much insight because I guess both of those bombs were like fission bombs. They were not like, thermonuclear like hydrogen bombs. So not too much. But just reading that book, I think is like, it's very terrifying. It's like, yeah, if a nuclear bomb, like
yeah,
it's over. Like it doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. I was playing around with it actually on the tool, like just simulating like what countries would be safe and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
it's just scary. But
It's no
I,
safety.
I
It's
when I,
not.
when I first heard about you, I was like, man, bro, if this guy was living in the 50s, like he would be recruited to Area 51 in less than a week.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that would play
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah,
I'm glad I'm not.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely better. But
Yeah.
a question I had was, you know, you said your parents are you know, they you grew up with them. They're very loving. Um, was there any like regard from them in terms of like the safety for this project?
Um, yeah, yeah. But the good thing is my parents live in Sri Lanka. They're very far away. Yeah, no, they definitely I've definitely like rebelled against them in a way, like a lot of these like risky things. Uh, but it's definitely, it takes a bit of convincing. Just being like, oh, don't worry, guys, I'll be okay. um, yeah, it definitely takes time. It takes time to convince people.
Yeah. And then was there any like radiation effects or
So no, there shouldn't be because the voltage you supply translates into how much electrovolts, how much energy each charged ion has, and it's not enough where it can escape the glass. So anything, it doesn't have enough energy to penetrate the glass and like come towards you as a person. So it should not, like mathematically, it should not.
yeah,
I know some people like saying stuff. I was like, it definitely should not. It's something called Bernstein radiation. That's what happens when like a charged ion like slows down. It emits radiation. So, but it should not slow down that much from that energy state to emit. So it should be fine. But for the full fuser, yeah, it's definitely very. The most dangerous part of this is the voltage. It'll instantly kill you. Like one touch, you're dead. It's no.
yeah.
Yeah.
At least you're alive. I wanted to shift the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
conversation a bit from the technical and building side to more of the business aspect, and I think your framework. Um, when you're going through, just being a builder, I think Waterloo encourages this a lot. Um, do you like see yourself modeling certain footsteps? Like I remember, I think Chamath is like someone similar to you. He's from Sri Lanka, he went to Waterloo and stuff like that. Or I think one of the
Hopefully not. I don't know. I know people keep bringing this up, and it's like, dude, I don't want to. If I become like it, I wouldn't be happy. I think. No disrespect to him, but it's just like I don't want to be a scammer. Okay. I want to have like a positive impact. That's very important to me, and I think Waterloo has this weird reputation of like the founders they make are just not good people. Or like the things that have come out of Water, like they're influential, but they failed. Like BlackBerry is a big one. Um, Chamath, sure. It's like just so many other things like that. It's just like I think there has to be a better reputation. Like the people that have to come out of it have to be good people at the base of it.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on certain people, but I do think like it is the Waterloo is a hub. It has a lot of similarities to like in terms of SF, like the technical prowess.
Mm. Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, the SF's technical prowess is from
Yeah, I know
Waterloo,
that.
so there definitely is.
I want to talk about a bit on the, leveraging virality and, using business momentum. So obviously, you published this. I don't know if you were like, when you're building this through the 3 weeks, you're like, man, bro, imagine how many likes is this gonna get and stuff like that. But when you got it, it's a lot of reactions and a lot of people reached out in terms of like, magazines or podcasts. How did that affect your vision, and how do you think it taught you a lesson in terms of like building reactions and virality for future projects or companies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The one thing I realized is like I've always been making stuff, and one of my friends, Anson, told me this, that like weirdly, I was kind of unhappy with the reaction, partly because, and she told me this, it was like you've worked on more impressive things before. I was like, yeah, I know. And none of that got any attention. Like way harder things, or like more, I think I thought deserved more attention, but they didn't get it. So my takeaway was that um, attention um, attention is attention is attention is good for a while, but having having no attention, I think, is even worse. Like having no attention really sucks, especially when you're working on things like this. So yeah, eventually the feeling of like, oh, people talking about you fades away, and you're like, okay, this is just kind of annoying now, um, and like you don't want to be cringe or whatever. So yeah, but not having anything at all is even worse. And I think that's what I had for most of my life. I don't want to sound like pitting myself, whatever, but it's like it was like kind of frustrating because I know I made a lot of stuff, and I never made it for views or anything. I just made it because it was
Yeah,
fun. Um, I don't make anything think about the likes or anything. I knew to some extent like this is very cool and therefore it should go viral. Like no one's ever done this before. It obviously made sense, but it wasn't the reason like why I did it that way. I think it was just a cool story.
that's nice. And have you thought about um has this changed your mindset about, perhaps using this as a making it into a company or getting funding? I know you applied to emergent ventures, but like taking like to the next step.
Uh, Maybe. It's hard to say because one, I still don't know a lot. This is a toy at the end of the day. Like what I'm making, sure, it may only be done like by a few hundred people, like at least the thing, but I actually don't know that much. And to actually seriously like look at the problem of like how can we solve fusion is I think something that might take more maturity and also more maybe not maturity, but more just like marinating. Like I need to marinate on the idea more. I need to like think of something that gives me an edge on this. Because I do think I bring fresh eyes to this field, but I still need to have knowledge. And I need to first get that before I do anything. So I couldn't like say, oh, I'm going to solve fusion. I think it's a great goal, but it doesn't have to be through a company right now. I don't have anything valuable that can make me deserve funding. Like this, it's not realistic. There's no reason. So yeah, I'm going to do things I'm good at right now, but this is not, maybe at some point once I have more knowledge, but eventually I think it's a great, goal to like solve limitless energy or whatever.
That's a very humble approach, but I commend you for that. I remember I was talking to my friend, and he was mentioning, like what if we take, nuclear powered, just bring nuclear reactors to kind of fund to power homes in rural communities instead of relying on solar and stuff like that. Do you think there's a certain space in the market for nuclear backed, whether it's reactors or fusers? Like, is there a space for it, or is it just too regulated or too volatile?
It depends, right? It's either fission or fusion. So fission is much more dangerous. Like fission is what scares everyone. You think of Chernobyl, and it's actually quite sad because they've been like shutting down a lot of power plants. They're very expensive to build. Fission has just not been solved. Like we can't do it like feasibly with a we can do a net positive, but it's just like we can't just put it everywhere. Yeah, I think it'll need a bit more time. Maybe I think that there's probably a future where we can do that, but I don't think that's like right now, at least. Yeah, I don't know. There's a new thing of like SMRs, which is like small modular reactors that are becoming popular, but I don't think anyone's actually like made it yet. So we'll see. I think I'm very optimistic.
Well, I know a lot of people were talking about, I think, nuclear powered what do they call them, like bases for LLMs. I forgot the technical word. What is it?
Like
Data
data
centers, right?
centers.
Yeah. And I think from your background, you're a software engineer. You do the wrapping on the front end side. Now you're getting you got experience with the nuclear, a bit of nuclear fusion stuff. Has that kind of sharpened your perspective on the future of AI, or given you more insight?
No. It's completely like unrelated. Like the problems are very different. The one thing I am realizing though is that beyond the usage of data sensors is like the impact this will have on the electricity grid or the power grid, and that is like an extreme strain on the grid in the next 10 years that we've never seen before. With data centers, aiming to eat up 9% of all, U.S. power, like that's very concerning because we're not ready to handle that yet. And so there's a reason why like Jeff Bezos is building power plants and stuff that privatize power. Is because it is the solution. Like you need, and again, that's nuclear fission, not fusion. So it's a completely different game, much more dangerous too. Like relatively, but it's still very safe overall. So yeah, the insight is that we need more like energy to do this, and it needs to come in a clean way, and we need a grid to stabilize it. Like we can't just like at the state of it, we can't just like put more power. Like it's not going to work. It'll just collapse.
Yeah. I know you're from talking to you, you're an ambitious individual from what I can tell. You're working on several projects. How do you kind of see yourself in the future? I know, Waterloo has a strong co-op program. You're working a bit with Cohere. What do you kind of envision yourself in the next, 3-5 years? Do you want to, exit as a founder? Do you want to take some more time to marinate and research, or how do you view the future for yourself?
Do no research, bro. No. I can't do. I'm bad at research.
No, I'm not talking about traditional research. I'm talking about more like playing with products in the
AI research.
No. Like I would say what you're doing right now, like a product in the nuclear future is a sense of a research, but more hands-on. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. I don't know. I think I just want to keep doing what I'm doing actually, but maybe in the form of company. Very likely in the form of company. Yeah, I don't know. I know it's like going to be in that like specific shape, but I don't know exactly what that shape looks like. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow, bro. I have no clue. Can't be asking me 3 years from now. That's too far.
Well, I know it seems like you're a very on the spot, on the go, very ambitious individual.
Yeah.
I think you're doing some good stuff, Hudhayfa. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Appreciate it.
And good luck with all your stuff, inshallah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sakla.